Forest was silent, a silence sharp as glass. Jason, the newly turned vampire, smelled danger in the air, a metallic scent mixed with the sweet perfume of Linda, the indigenous warrior. She was in danger. Someone had captured her, leaving only a single eagle feather as a clue. A feather that glowed with a strange blue light, the same light that emanated from Linda's eyes when she connected with her ancestral werewolf power. Were the vampires, the humans, or the werewolves themselves behind the kidnapping? Time was short, and Linda's life hung by a thread. The Amazon rainforest whispered secrets in an ancient tongue, a language that Jason, the immortal vampire, was only beginning to understand. The humid, dense air clung to his pale skin, contrasting with the burning heat in his chest. The eagle feather, blue as a piece of the night sky, trembled in his hand. It was a clue, a thread of hope in a labyrinth of shadows and mystery. Linda, the woman he loved, the warrior who carried the ancestral strength of the wolves in her blood, was missing. Her eyes, which once shone with the power of untamed nature, were now closed, trapped in a deadly silence. Jason felt rage building inside him, a vampiric fury simmering beneath his skin, ready to explode. Her scent, the intoxicating perfume of her skin, was faint, almost gone, but still there, a beacon in the darkness. It was a scent that blended the aroma of the forest, of damp earth, and something more. Something magical, something wild, something uniquely Linda. He would find her, even if he had to scour every corner of the dark forest, even if he had to face his master's entire vampire army, or every ferocious werewolf pack. The eagle feather glowed with an almost painful intensity in his hands. He held it carefully, as if it were a fragment of Linda's heart. It wasn't just a feather. It was a piece of the ancestral strength flowing in his beloved's veins, the power of the wolves sleeping within her, a power she hadn't yet fully mastered, a power that was connected to the very heart of the forest. Jason knew this power was the key to finding her, to saving her. But who had kidnapped her? The vampires, always thirsty for power, with their cold eyes and dark hearts? Or the humans, so blinded by their fears and prejudices? Or even the werewolves themselves, her ancestors, who perhaps feared the power Linda could unleash? The answer was hidden in the darkness of the forest, and Jason knew he would have to dig deep to uncover it. A tremor ran through Jason's body. It wasn't cold, but something deeper, a sense of foreboding. He felt the presence of something near, something dangerous. The air grew denser, heavier, charged with a dark energy. The sound of snapping branches broke the silence. The forest was watching, listening, and Jason knew he was about to face a battle that could cost him much more than blood. It could cost him his love. He followed the trail left by the feather, the blue light guiding his hesitant steps. The forest seemed to close in on him, the trees like shadowy giants. With each step, Linda's scent grew stronger, closer, but also more menacing, mingling with the metallic scent of blood. A trap? A lure? He didn't know, but he would press on. For him, love for Linda was a shield against the darkness, stronger than any magic, stronger than the ancestral power of the wolves themselves. Suddenly, a howl cut through the silence, a long, guttural howl that echoed through the valleys. It was the cry of a werewolf, a warning cry, a battle cry. Jason felt a shiver run down his spine. Were the werewolves involved, or were they just another obstacle in his path? The journey to rescue Linda promised to be more difficult than he had imagined. Every step, a new danger, a new mystery. The eagle feather in his hand was now a weight, a heavy weight of hope and fear, a reminder of the danger that awaited him. And, above all, the promise of finding Linda, even if it cost him his own life. Love, he knew, was a battle as bloody as any other. The howl echoed again, closer this time, followed by a low, menacing growl. Jason, his senses sharpened by his new vampiric state, realized it came from several werewolves, at least 3, perhaps more. They were hidden in the shadows, their eyes glowing like embers, watching his movements. The eagle feather, still vibrant in his hand, pulsed with a more intense light, as if responding to the imminent threat. It was a sign, a warning. Linda was near, but she was also in mortal danger. The fight was inevitable. The werewolves attacked with the savage fury of their ancestors, their sharp claws tearing through the air. Jason, despite his newfound vampiric strength, was still learning to control it, to tame it. He fought with the agility of a feline, dodging the ferocious attacks, his sharp teeth responding with quick, precise bites. The smell of blood filled the air. The smell of his blood. The smell of the werewolf's blood. A scent that mingled with the sweet, persistent aroma of Linda. As he fought, Jason noticed something strange. The werewolves weren't attacking him with the blind fury of wild animals. There was a hesitation in their movements, a reluctance almost, as if they were fighting against something beyond their own will. It was as if a greater force controlled them, a dark force that trapped him in a whirlwind of doubt and confusion. The battle raged for minutes that seemed like hours, a whirlwind of claws, teeth, and brute force. Jason, wounded but determined, began to notice a pattern in the werewolves' attacks. They surrounded him, pushed him, directed him to a specific place, a place he felt intuitively was related to Linda. He was being led, like a pawn in a game far larger than he could imagine. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the trees. A tall, slender woman with piercing, cold eyes. Her face was pale and angular, her lips thin and dry. She held a gleaming dagger, the blade bathed in a strange blue light, exactly like the eagle feather in Jason's possession. It was a cold, icy light that chilled Jason to the bone. "You will find her, vampire!" the woman hissed, her voice smooth as the whisper of a serpent. "But not before you pay the price." With a swift movement, she cut a tree branch, revealing a hidden cave. Inside the cave, trapped by spells of ancient dark magic, Linda lay unconscious, imprisoned in a cage made of dark energy. The eagle feather in Jason's hand reacted even more intensely to this dark presence, pulsing with a blue light that threatened to burn his fingers. The woman, with a cruel smile on her lips, vanished into the shadows of the forest. The werewolves, as if released from a control, howled, scattering into the dark corners of the jungle. Jason, his heart aching at the sight of his beloved imprisoned, knew the battle was only beginning. He wouldn't just face vampires and werewolves now, he would face an ancestral force, a dark magic that seemed imbued even in the magical beings surrounding him, to free the woman he loved. The search for love had become a war against an immense and sinister power, and Jason was alone, in the midst of the dark jungle, with only the eagle feather and his vampire heart to guide him. The Amazon rainforest, once a stage of wild beauty, was now a war zone. Jason, the newly turned vampire, felt the weight of the eagle feather in his hand, as if it were the weight of destiny. The metallic scent of blood mingled with Linda's sweet aroma, getting stronger, closer, but also more threatening. He felt her near, but a dark, cold presence enveloped him like a deadly embrace. The feather's trail, once a guide, now led him into a whirlwind of shadows and mysteries. Jason's heart beat hard, a frantic rhythm that echoed the urgency of the situation. He wasn't just a vampire fighting for survival. He was a man in love, fighting for the love of his life. A howl ripped through the air, a guttural sound that chilled Jason's blood. These weren't the desperate howls of a hunted animal, but the war cry of a pack. Werewolves, his ancestors, were all around him. He didn't know if they were allies or enemies, but he felt the raw fury in their steps. He was surrounded, in the midst of a battle that promised to end what little humanity he still possessed. He fought against his vampiric instincts, against the thirst for blood, and against the fury of the werewolves. It was a war on multiple fronts, and Linda was at the center of this conflict. With each attack of the werewolves, Jason felt a stab of despair, a fear of losing the woman who, in just a few days, had become the strength of his life, the reason for every beat of his immortal heart. The fight was frantic, a whirlwind of claws and teeth. Jason, despite his newfound strength, was still not a complete vampire. He moved with the agility of a feline, but he felt the weight of the fight, the fatigue, the risk of losing his beloved. With each attack of the werewolves, he felt his own strength waning, his life slipping through his fingers, like the blood he was fighting not to spill. However, he refused to give up. Love for Linda was his shield against the darkness. Then, he noticed something, a hesitation in the attacks, a reluctance in the werewolves' movements. It wasn't the blind fury of wild animals, but something more calculated, colder. It was as if a greater force was guiding them, a dark energy manipulating them. A thread of hope ran through his body, a fragile thread but stubborn. Someone was manipulating him, guiding him somewhere. Suddenly, the forest opened. A pale, slender woman emerged from the shadows. Her eyes were cold as ice, her dark aura enveloped him. She radiated power, an evil force that frightened him, and made the eagle feather in his hand pulse more strongly, a blue light cutting through the darkness. The woman held a dagger that glowed with a similar light, a deadly light that threatened to devour him. "You will find her, vampire," the woman hissed, her voice like the whisper of serpents in the depths of the jungle. "But not before you pay the price." With a fluid and precise movement, the woman cut a tree branch, revealing a cave. Inside, trapped by spells of dark magic, Linda lay unconscious, in a cage of dark energy. The eagle feather in his hands vibrated with intense force, responding to the malevolent magic that imprisoned the woman he loved. The woman disappeared into the forest, leaving Jason alone, facing his imprisoned beloved. The werewolves howled and dispersed, as if awakening from a deep sleep. Jason, heartbroken, knew the battle was far from over. He had only reached the first obstacle in this ancestral war. The search for Linda had turned into a fight against an unknown enemy, an enemy who used dark magic and manipulated supernatural beings. He was alone, facing a terrifying power, with only his passionate heart and an eagle feather as an ally in his fight against the darkness. Would the blue feather, the love of his life and his own immortality, be enough to free her? The answer was in the heart of the forest, in the mystery surrounding him, in the bloody battle that was only just beginning. The Amazon rainforest, a labyrinth of shadows and mysteries, fell silent for a moment. The fight with the werewolves was over, but the sense of danger persisted, more intense than before. The woman, with her icy eyes and aura of dark magic, had disappeared, leaving Jason alone before the cave where Linda, imprisoned, lay unconscious in a cage of dark energy. The eagle feather in his hand glowed with a worrying intensity, a sign of the evil power surrounding them. Jason's heart, a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, beat hard against his ribs. He needed to save her, free her from the clutches of that sinister magic. But how? He knew nothing about dark magic, nor how to break those ancestral spells. Linda's scent, sweet and terrifying, emanated from the cave, mixed with the heavy, fetid air of dark magic. The energy cage pulsed with an icy blue light, identical to that of the mysterious woman's dagger and the magical feather. Jason knew he couldn't hesitate. Every passing second was a threat to the life of the woman he loved. He slowly advanced towards the cave, the eagle feather trembling in his hand, as if guided by an invisible force. Entering the damp, cold cave, Jason felt a wave of dark energy envelop him, a pressure that weighed down his chest. The energy cage was more imposing up close, its contours defined, pulsating, emanating a chilling aura that penetrated to the bone. Linda was there, pale and fragile, her long black hair scattered on the damp ground, without any sign of life. Jason reached out, feeling the ancestral power of the eagle feather vibrate in his hand, in sync with the dark energy of the cage. He tried to touch the cage, but an invisible force repelled him. It was as if a magical barrier protected Linda from his salvation. Heartbroken, Jason tried to use the newly discovered powers of his new vampiric state, but the dark magic proved implacable. His sharp teeth, his superhuman strength, his sharpened senses, everything was useless against that dark energy. The eagle feather, his last thread of hope, seemed to tremble in his hand as the dark magic increased its intensity, imprisoning Linda with overwhelming force. Then he heard something, a faint whisper, almost inaudible, coming from the depths of the cave. A whisper that wasn't the magic nor the sounds of the forest. It was Linda's voice calling to him, weak but determined. "Jason," she murmured, her voice almost lost in the darkness. "The stone, behind the waterfall." Before Jason could react, the cave shook violently. The earth trembled, and the stone walls began to crumble, revealing a secret passage behind a thin curtain of water. The force of the tremor made Jason lose his balance, and he fell near the new passage emerging from the wall. There, in the depths, he saw an intense glow, a red light emanating from something that looked like a giant blood-red crystal. Was this the stone mentioned by Linda? A stone that shone intensely, as if pulsing with a primitive and ancient energy, in a point of shock, contrasting with the icy coldness of the dark magic. But the passage closed quickly, bearing the sight of the red crystal as the cave rumbled around Jason. A deafening crash echoed through the jungle. When the dust settled, Jason, wounded and exhausted, was alone in a ruined cave. Linda was still imprisoned, but now the energy cage pulsed with even greater force, feeding on Jason's confusion and despair. He stood up, the eagle feather still in his hand. But now, a new element joined this infernal search. The location of the stone, a riddle that promised new adventures and dangers. What is the secret of this red stone? What does it have to do with the dark magic that imprisoned Linda? And who was the mysterious woman who manipulated him here? The answer, he realized, was beyond the collapsed cave and towards the distant waterfall, a dark and mysterious place. Jason's heart, torn between love and fear, beat hard against his ribs. The search for love had turned into a race against time and against supernatural forces. He had a path to follow. Will the feather's trail lead him to Linda or to his end? The fate of the war between vampires, humans, and werewolves was about to be decided, and he needed to be ready.